So could I just ask the people on the pathway just to either move to the left or certainly come in front of the memorial, around the memorial down here. Just need to keep that path clear, please. Well, good morning, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to the commemoration ceremony of the 20th anniversary of the 2002 Bali bombings. My name is Dominic Sullivan. 20 years ago, I served as Mayor of Randwick when the Bali bombings wreaked terror and tragedy and sent shockwaves through our community. And was Mayor when we gathered here in 2003 on the first anniversary at the newly named Dolphin's Point to unveil the memorial to the victims and the survivors and their families. It is my pleasure and honour to be the MC of this ceremony this morning. To begin, I would like to invite Nolene Timbry to the stage to welcome us to country. Nolene Timbry proudly belongs to one of the most recognisable families in the La Perouse community. She is also the current chairperson of the La Perouse Local Aboriginal Land Council. Like many families in La Perouse, the Timbry family have a long tradition and cultural connection to La Perouse, coastal Sydney, and the Illawarra and South Coast areas. Nolene uses her leadership role in the La Perouse community to advocate for self-determination, empowerment and prosperity for her community, which is built on strength in culture and unity. Professionally, Nolene works on developing and managing programs that are aimed to provide improved outcomes for Aboriginal children and families in southwestern Sydney. Thank you, Nolene.
Thank you. I'm a little bit shorter than most people. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. As Dominic said, my name is Nolene Timbry. I proudly belong to the La Perouse Aboriginal community and I'm the chairperson of the La Perouse Aboriginal Land Council. My family, like many in my community, have traditional, ancestral and cultural connections to coastal Sydney, the Illawarra and the Shoalhaven areas. We consider this our country. I would like to acknowledge the Bidjigal and Gadigal clans who are the traditional occupants of the land we gather on and ask that you join me in paying respects to Bidjigal and Gadigal elders past and present, and on their behalf I welcome you here today. I would like to make special mention of the Prime Minister and New South Wales Premier in attendance today. Welcome. The Welcome to Country is our modern interpretation of seeking and receiving permission to visit areas beyond our traditional lands. It is a ceremony recognising the cultural and spiritual connection to country and an opportunity to reaffirm our ongoing relationship to our land and waterways. The ceremony allows us to pay respect to our elders, to reflect on our history and to build a vision for a prosperous and reconciled future. Our community has been built on resilience and connection. Where once our people lived freely within our country, in 1883 our old people were moved from traditional camps in and around Sydney Harbour and Botany Bay to our community's present site at La Perouse. In the late 1890s, our ancestors at La Perouse were described as all that remains of the descendants of the native tribe that occupied the district at the time of English occupation in 1788. Today, our community is described as the only discrete Aboriginal community in the Greater Sydney area. Again, our community has been built on resilience and connection. We remain connected to country, to our traditions, and to continuing our culture and cultural practice. We remember the past in the hope of a brighter tomorrow. Because of that, I want to acknowledge today's proceedings and the tragedy that occurred 20 years ago. On behalf of my community, I offer continued respects and sympathies to everyone impacted by the events in Bali in 2002. I hope that coming together in remembrance brings you comfort and that you too have hope for a brighter tomorrow. So on behalf of the La Perouse Local Aboriginal Land Council, my people and my ancestors, I welcome you all to the traditional lands of the Gadigal and Bidjigal people. Thank you.
Thank you, Nolene. I would also like to acknowledge that we're meeting on the land of the Bidjigal and Gadigal peoples, the traditional owners who occupied the Sydney coast. I acknowledge and pay my respects to the elders past and present and emerging, and to any Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders people in attendance today. This ceremony is a precious opportunity to come together to support each other and remember and honour those who died, those who survived, and those who grieve. I'd like to extend a special welcome to the families and friends of those who died in Bali, the survivors, rescuers, volunteers, searchers and support services, and members of the community. It's an honour to have you all here today. I would also like to welcome and acknowledge the Honourable Anthony Albanese, Prime Minister of Australia, the Honourable Peter Dutton, Leader of the Opposition, the Honourable Dominic Perrottet, Premier of New South Wales, Mr Chris Minns, Leader of the New South Wales Opposition, the Honourable Matt Thistlethwaite, Member for Kingsford Smith, the State Member for Coogee, Dr Marjorie O'Neill, the State Member for Maroubra, Mr Michael Daly, Senators for New South Wales, Senator Andrew Bragg, Senator Tony Sheldon, Nolene Timbry, Chairperson of the La Perouse Local Aboriginal Land Council, the Mayor of Randwick, Councillor Dylan Parker, the Deputy Mayor of Randwick, Councillor Raffaella Pandolfini, and to other Randwick City Councillors here today, Councillor Bill Burst, Councillor Noel D'Souza, Councillor Christy Hamilton, Councillor Joanne McCafferty, Councillor Kathy Nielsen, Councillor Danny Sed, and Councillor Philippa Vetch. I would also like to welcome the Indonesian Consul General, Mr Vidi Kanaya Wada, Ms Therese Manns, General Manager, Randwick City Council, Assistant Commissioner of the Australian Federal Police, Christy Schofield, and members of the Australian Federal Police Eastern Command, Superintendent Karen Cook, and members of the Eastern Beaches Local Area Command, members of the Randwick SES who are providing their support today, Dr Christina Curry, Mayor of Bayside, Mr Ray Brownlee, PSM, Northern Beaches Council CEO, Ms Julie Dunsmore, AM, Ms Martha Jabor, OAM, Ms Katrina Pavalny, Ms Diane Bryan, members of the Homicide Victim Support Group, members and supporters from the Coogee Dolphins, Keith McGraw, President of South Sydney Juniors, Coogee Surf Lifesaving Club, and of course a welcome to everyone who has come to show their respects today, as well as those families and community members joining us via the live stream this morning. I would now like to invite the Mayor of Randwick, Councillor Dylan Parker, to welcome us.
Thank you very much, Dominic, for that kind introduction, and welcome to everyone. My name is Dylan Parker and I am the Mayor of Randwick City Council, where you're all meeting on today. I would too like to acknowledge that we are meeting on the land of the Bidjigal and Gadigal peoples, and to pay my respects to elders past, present and any Aboriginal people here today. Now, importantly, before I begin, I really want to acknowledge the family, the friends, the survivors, the first responders who were impacted that tragic day. Many of you, looking out at the crowd in front of us in what is not the nicest of weather, have been with us for many, many years. Others, only some years, because the pain has been too raw. To those of you before me, feel seen. Know that we care for you, and that your loved ones are not forgotten, that you belong here. It is an absolute honour to welcome you all to have you here today with us, to gather once again, one more year after what has been 2 decades, to gather together as a community to remember those who were lost. We have with us some very esteemed guests. We have a Prime Minister, Premier, Federal and State Opposition Leader, Consuls General, as well as a list of dignitaries which are too long for me to list. These people could be here, they could be anywhere today, but they've chosen to be here. Why? Because continuing the memory of those lost remains so important. Your loved ones matter, and they will continue to matter. The Bali Commemoration is a special event for our area. It gives our community a moment to pause, to reflect and to honour those who were lost. It is a reminder to hold your loved ones close and to squeeze just that little bit harder when you see them next. 2 decades ago, a shocking act of violence took them from you. An instant moment of rage that has led to 2 decades of pain. 88 Australians, 20 of whom were from our own very special part of the world. We honour their memories and the impact that they had on us, and we remember with love how much they added as sons, as daughters, as friends, as colleagues, as teammates. Now, every day is undeniably hard for those who are lost, but I do want to pay particular recognition that a milestone day like today may be especially hard for you. 2 decades can seem like an eternity, but also an instant, a flash in time as if that moment and their memory was lost just yesterday. So, thank you all for being here. After 20 years, for each and every year allowing Council to be a part of that. But most importantly, thank you for continuing to come, for continuing to be there for one another each and every time it is needed. The grief may never go away. It may ebb and flow, some days easier, some days more challenging. But it is my hope that those of you who are hurting, that you also feel that there is the love there, the support there, and the embrace of your community. We put our arms around each other together and pause and reflect. We reflect not only on what we have lost, but also what we were actually lucky to have, even if it was just for a short, fleeting moment of time. Now is a time for all of us to tell stories to those who may not have known as well as you would have liked, to make sure that the next generation know the individuals were lost, knew their achievements, knew who they were as people. Today is a day to remember that the lives which were lived, not those which were lost, but the lives which were lived, and that their legacy continues on. We've gathered here today in this special place, right here at Coogee, at Dolphin's Point, on this day since the beginning in 2003. It will continue to do so for years to come. The 3 figures to my left that you see in front of you, they represent friends, they represent family, and they represent community. Remember those 3 things. They provide support for one another in times of adversity, comfort when it is required, and the strength to carry on each and every day. When you look at this memorial, I want you to remember that you are not alone and that they are not forgotten. Welcome and thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd now like to welcome the Honourable Dominic Perrottet, the Premier of New South Wales, to say a few words.
Thank you, Dominic. Prime Minister Anthony Albanese, leaders of the opposition, Peter Dutton and Chris Minns, to our parliamentary colleagues, both state and federal, to the Mayor and councillors, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Like others, I want to begin today by acknowledging the families and the friends of the victims, as well as the survivors and their families who are here with us today. This anniversary, this commemoration, this day belongs in a special way to the people who were directly affected. This day belongs to the survivors. It belongs to the 202 people whose lives were taken, including 88 Australians, almost half of them from here in New South Wales. It belongs to the families and friends who are here today to mourn. It belongs to the first responders and those who helped in the aftermath. Because although all of us may remember that day, we cannot even begin to imagine what it means for you, what it feels like for you. All we can do is offer you our support, our friendship, our solidarity, and our resolve to stand with you. For some, marking the passage of 20 years may feel like an eternity. For others, it is shocking to think how quickly time has passed. And with that passage of time, we hope the burden of grief is easier to bear. Even though there is no fading of memory, we will never forget. Dolphin's Point was built with exactly that purpose in mind. From its plaques to the sculpture to the stunning scenery of our coastline, this memorial is an invitation for all of us to remember. And that is our duty. We owe it to those who lost their lives. We owe it to the heroic men and women who rushed to help, ordinary people who did extraordinary things. And we owe it to the people of our nation and future generations, and it's great to see so many school children here today, to never forget that peace and freedom are fragile and precious. Because it was our freedom, our democracy, our egalitarian way of life that the terrorists sought to destroy that day by taking the lives of innocent victims. Their goal was to instill fear into the hearts and divide us as a people. But they did not understand that our hearts are bigger and that our resolve has only grown stronger. The terrorists did not succeed in their goal. In the aftermath of the attack, we witnessed an outpouring of kindness, of courage and hope from all Australians and from people right across the world. A show of love and unity far greater than terror. And today, our nation remains a vibrant and welcoming society, a bastion of freedom, democracy and peace. Our relationship with Indonesia, with the Consul General here today, is productive and strong. Our future is brighter than ever. But today we resolve to take none of that for granted. That is our responsibility as a people to the victims and to their families whose grief remains. We honour them today by working today and every day to strengthen and to preserve the values we hold dear, so that Australia may remain peaceful and free for generations to come. Thank you.
Thank you, Premier. I'd now like to welcome the Honourable Anthony Albanese, Prime Minister of Australia, to say a few words.
I begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which we meet and pay my respect to elders past, present and emerging. I want to acknowledge the Premier of New South Wales, the federal leader of the opposition, the state leader of the opposition, my friend Chris Minns. I want to acknowledge the local members who are here, Matt Thistlethwaite, the member for Kingsford Smith, and Marjorie O'Neill and Michael Daly, the local state members, other members of Parliament who are here, the Mayor and councillors, and other distinguished guests, including the Consul General from Indonesia. It's very good to have you here, sir. Can I particularly, though, acknowledge the family and friends of those who lost loved ones 20 years ago today, and to the sporting clubs to which they belonged, who have such a rich history of sporting clubs in this region being what binds the community together. 20 years ago, I was with this bloke on the South Sydney board. I was reflecting earlier this morning. The unity that this community has shown and the strength that it's shown is quite extraordinary, and I pay tribute to you. 20 years ago, the shockwaves from Bali reached our shores. 20 years ago, an act of malice and calculated depravity robbed the world of 202 lives, including 88 Australians. 20 years on, the ache does not dim. For most of us, what happened on that fateful night is beyond imagining. The sudden terrible light, followed by the sudden terrible darkness. The awful postscript of fire. Alongside the local workers and residents were teammates enjoying their end-of-season holiday. Members of the Kingsley Football Club, the Sturt Football Club, the Southport Sharks, the Dulwich Hill Newdown Basketball Club from my own electorate. And I note that Debbie and Abby Borges' father and husband is here with us today. He lost his wife and the youngest victim, his daughter, in that tragedy. And of course the Coogee Dolphins, their name bestowed upon this now sacred piece of land in an act of remembering teammates. We think of them with the ache of knowing that they should still be here. Their senses filled with everything that we feel now. The salty tang of the air, the sea in its ancient rhythm, foaming against beach and cliff, and the tapestry of voices of which they were all such an integral part. So many futures were stolen on that night. We think of every conversation never had, every moment of love never known. We think of those who survived, and we think of those who helped. What they saw that night will never leave them. Yet amid it all, the very worst of circumstances brought out the very best in people. It brought out compassion, selflessness, it brought out heroism. That night, the terrorists could not achieve their aim. What they struck, they could not defeat. Because what they struck at was the idea of us, the great fabric of dreams and ideals and compassion and fairness that make us who we are as Australians. Indonesians, Australians, people from all over the world. They struck at the friendship between us. They struck at the joy of a free people. They struck at humanity. But we remain. In the end, they reminded us of what is so important to us, and to not take for granted what we have built and nurtured over generations. They sought to create terror, but people ran towards the terror to do what they could for friend and stranger alike, because what drove them was a higher, more human instinct than those who attacked them. What the architects of this slaughter achieved was to make us reflect on what we most truly value and to hold onto it more tightly than ever before. No terrorist can take this from us, but they did take life. They left survivors to rebuild themselves physically and mentally. They left families and friends struggling with loss. For them, and for so many people here today, the world could never be the same again. 20 years on, so many hearts are still tethered to that cruel night, every beat tempered by an abiding sorrow. Many currents were stopped in the great river of life that night, and some are still stranded on the bank, unable to walk away. Grief is its own creature. Grief does not travel in straight lines. Grief may soften with time, but it does not fade. As my predecessor Julia Gillard put it a decade ago, Bali is a place like London and Gallipoli where something of the Australian spirit dwells upon another shore. And it is a beloved shore. Indonesian people have reached out to generations of Australians as friends and neighbours. They felt our great pain that night, and we felt theirs. This beautiful monument here represents families, friends, and community. Its three parts are bowed in sorrow, but they hold each other because in unity we find strength and we find hope and we find love. We find each other. And that is how we come together, including today. Our hearts filled with everyone who never came home and can't be with us. It fills also with everyone who never came home the same, everyone who still carries the loss, and every survivor that we have lost since. We hold on to their names and faces, and we will never let them fade. Let them live in eternal peace.
Thank you, Prime Minister, for those words. I'd now like to invite a Coogee local, Joe Sullivan, to perform You'll Never Walk Alone.
When you walk through a storm, hold your head up high and don't be afraid of the dark. At the end of a storm, there's a golden sky and the sweet silver song of a love. Walk on through the wind, walk on through the rain, for your dreams be tossed and blown. Walk on with hope in your heart, and you'll never walk alone. You'll never walk alone. Walk on, walk on.
Thank you, Joe. That was absolutely beautiful. I'd now like to welcome to the stage Paul Yeo to say a few words. Paul lost his brother Jared Yeo in the bombings. Jared was part of the Coogee Dolphins football club, who was celebrating an end-of-season trip in Bali. Jared had only relocated to Coogee from Dubbo 18 months before. Paul also was a Coogee Dolphins club member. He and two of his sisters, Greta and Megan, flew to Bali in the aftermath to search for their brother.
Hi, I speak today on behalf of my parents, Pat and Keo, siblings Rachel, Megan, Greta, Justin, Simon, Jessica, and of course my late brother Jared. So yeah, that's one big Catholic family. And televisions were obviously scarce in 1970 and 1980 in Dubbo. To the Honourable Prime Minister and dignitaries, the Premier, as all been mentioned just prior to me coming up, a special inclusion there to Randwick Council, who we all thank for making it possible for us to be here together each year. It means so much to us that this Memorial Day can continue on. Coogee Dolphins are indebted to Randwick Council and Paddy Byrne, who displayed the greatest determination in pursuing the naming of this beautiful space now known as Dolphin Point. This place plays an active role in keeping many of us in good spirits year-round. It's here forever to ensure those are never forgotten. Losing Paddy in 2014 was hard. He was the 7th member who had passed from the 2002 team. After displaying rare character on the fateful night with his selfless acts saving lives, he then returned home to continue the amazing effort. His ability to put a smile on the grieving parents' faces was outstanding. We would look on with admiration as he picked them up with his smile, energy and his laugh. Sadly, the Dolphin family has also recently lost Don Howard, who passed on Adam's birthday, on his son Adam's birthday. A great man who will be sorely missed by Joyce, Brendan and all who knew him. I'm sure he is with Adam now. I spoke here years ago in 2006 and I recalled how brave the parents of the lost children had been, and nothing changes. There's nothing like it. I still don't know how they do it, to be fair. I recalled some stories that day that friends and family had shared, details such as Gail Airley having 25 bottles of perfume on a dressing table, Shane Foley's cricket mates recalling his match-winning catches, Josh Yiles's father, Peter, giving him 20 cents a tackle as a boy in rugby league, of how Chloe Byron would sleep at her Nana's on Wednesday nights and always wanted Nana to cook something gourmet, of Clint Thompson's favourite David Bowie tune being that song Heroes, that Adam Howard himself loved to laugh and didn't mind a punt either, as to Dave Mavrudas, who was simply his dad's best mate, leaving his beautiful mum Colleen and sister Jane to lament what would have been. As for Jared, the backyard at 10 Alder Place, Dubbo, would see the regular after-school backyard rumble take place. Lots of kids, and then you'd hear it, "Where's Jez?" And he'd yell back from inside, "I'm inside making pancakes," and that name stuck with him when he moved down to Coogee. He was known as Pancake amongst the Coogee Dolphins Leagues Club. When Jared first got to Sydney to start his plumbing trade with myself and good mate Ross Clark, we thought what a better way to get a young fella into the community is to have a game of football. So the three of us, with our mates Chris Dooley and Sean Townsend, joined the Coogee Dolphins. The team had as many bush boys as city boys, and it was a great mix. Socially, we were great, and we could play a bit too, but fell short that year. As the year closed out, the annual trip away beckoned. However, with personally my wife and I expecting our first child, Joseph, 6 weeks after Bali, I was a non-starter, and I was shocked when Jez told us that he was going on the trip. I can't tell you how many times I tried to talk him out of it. I genuinely thought he wasn't ready. His habit of wandering off after a few drinks was a concern. But he was locked in. As he told us, he was off to Garuda. And the giggling started, and we let him go like a close-knit family would, and just played on it. And then eventually someone told him he was actually flying Garuda to Bali. In everyone's life, there are difficult situations and decisions to make. Myself and two of my sisters, Megan and Greta, as you've just heard, along with Alex Rubner, were able to fly to Bali the next day. The courage my sisters showed that day was amazing. The things they saw could not be forgotten, all in search of Jez. They were so incredibly brave that day. Other difficult moments for me, calling my dad to advise it wasn't looking good for his boy, was one such moment. I recall telling him to brace himself for the worst. Silence followed. He was broken. How could it be that the son he and mum had poured so much energy into bringing through a difficult adolescence, all the love and care they gave, and he was gone? A month later, I was asked to identify Jared in Dubbo. My mind was torn between not knowing if what I was about to see would haunt me forever, or was I just privileged to see him one last time? I recall the moments before entering the room like yesterday. Never have I been so scared. I sat there for quite a while. It was very hard to leave. A few weeks after this, I woke a little late for work and instinctively ran into Jared's room. He lived with us, to wake him for work. And no Jez, just an empty bed, exactly as he'd left it. Those few moments definitely have an effect. But life was still rolling on in the background. Joseph was born 6 weeks after Bali. His birth brought plenty of joy to our family. I know that because Mum and Dad have told me as much. He is here today, and he reminds me of Jez in so many ways. Personally, I and others waited a little too long before looking for help, but thank God for Julie Dunsmore. Good people do good things, and with the help of Julie, the Allen family and Vanny families from Malabar, along with the Dolphin community, we started to improve. The surviving players from 2002 side, who were such support to each other during the years that followed, the families and the club had the utmost respect for the way those players handled themselves. In the years that followed, you have assisted the club grow from one team of 20 guys in 2002 to today, where it is multiple league and netball teams. And with families like the Hacks, Holmes and the Vannies, the future is really positive. As with many of our boys, Jared has various legacies in his name. Dubbo Junior League Development Scholarship, named after Jared, was started by his late and great uncle Mick Wilson and wife Penny. The Coogee Surf Club named a boat after Jared, the Tom and Jerry boat, so named after Jared and Tom Singer. The Boxing Day Trots in Dubbo have an annual memorial race organised by Jez's great mate and cousin Nicholas Wilson and friends. The Coogee Dolphins, Dubbo Sims, St John's Rugby League clubs have all awards in Jared's name, as does St Mary's and St John's College schools. We thank, as on behalf of the family, we thank those above mentioned for honouring him and never forgetting him, which is a common theme with the club and the community. It's just the fact they don't forget, it helps no end. Jared will be so proud of his nieces and nephews. We're sure he's looking over our daughter Belle and niece Asha today as they start the HSC. He would be immensely proud of his eldest nephew Isaiah, currently touring with the Kangaroos. And Isaiah and partner Ash providing much joy recently to Mum and Dad with their first great grandchild. As a club and a family, we get so much out of these days. This place is so special. I can't emphasise that enough. It really is. Again, I'd like to thank Randwick Council for all their efforts every year, putting this on, going out of their way to help. Yeah, for that, our family, a club, community, are very thankful. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. I'd now like to invite Jan Roberts to say a few words. Jan Roberts is the mum of Ben Roberts. Ben died as a result of the Bali bombings. Ben was in Bali at the time for the International Rugby Tens competition. Jan spoke at the very first Bali commemoration ceremony in Coogee.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I am Ben's mum. I am also Lucy's mum. Siblings are important. We need to cherish those left behind. Many families around the world will be remembering their loved ones today. We are all connected by what happened 20 years ago. It is woven into the fabric of our lives. Ben had a motto in life: experiences, discovery, and passion. He had his dream job. He'd moved to Jakarta with his partner, Carolyn. He was playing for the Iski Komodos rugby team, and they were in Bali for the Bali Tens competition. The last game they played was against the Wallara colleagues, Ben's old team from Sydney, and Ben's team won. They were very excited. They all jumped in taxis and they went to the Sari Club. Ben was in the first taxi with 5 of his mates. Those 6 young men died. Ben lived for 26 days. He was medevaced to Singapore. He was in a coma for most of that time and ventilated. For a couple of days, he was able to speak to us. And the first thing he said to me, "Mum, could you get me a McDonald's egg and bacon McMuffin?" My Ben. He died on the 7th of November. He was 28 years old. The aftermath. Grief comes in waves. It's like the sea out here. Sometimes the waves are huge and they knock you under, they knock you over. You get up and they take you down again. Sometimes you get into calmer water and you think, the rhythm of my life is back again, and then the waves will come. Everyone deals with grief in different ways. It left me weak at the knees and needing silence. I existed but was not present for 2 years. What helps? Well, it's the simple routines of life. Having a dog that gets you up in the morning and makes you go out and go for a walk. We've had 2 dogs now, Hazel and now Gemma. Hugs. People giving you hugs and just being there. It really matters. Sewing, singing, and swimming. An old friend of mine got me into a quilting group, and those ladies helped me make a quilt from Ben's shirts and from his rugby jerseys, and I have them home with me. They are wonderful. Singing. I joined a choir out at Little Bay, and singing out loud every Wednesday is great therapy. Swimming. 12 years ago, my daughter taught me to swim. She bought me goggles and she taught me how to breathe. You're supposed to go each side, but I can only go one side. But I swim down at Coogee and I swim up at the Coogee diggers. We've now moved to Coogee. We were in PNG when Ben died, and we moved to Sydney to be closer to Lucy and Ben's partner Carolyn, but we now live in Coogee. Becoming a grandma is pure joy. Just the hand in yours, the smile, the eyes, it is just wonderful. 4 people sitting over there. Julie, all of you. Martha, who I was with yesterday when some of the Bali mothers got together. I don't know the gentleman, but the council. And Katrina. Katrina was the Australian Federal Police liaison officer, and she held our hand through those early days when we went to Bali. We went to the trials, and Katrina was with us. There was also people from DFAT, and they helped interpret. These are, the kindness of strangers means so much. Meeting other family members has made a difference. We're all connected. Ben's mates, they have been loyal. They told us stories. They made us laugh. They made us cry. The other day, a good friend, she was with us in Singapore. She called me and she said she was remembering the times in Melbourne when Ben lived there. And she told me he belonged to a book group. And I said, I was surprised. He liked his books and he liked debating. But she said it was held in a pub. This memorial here means a great deal. Every morning we walk down here with our dogs and we give the pillars a hug. On warm days, they are warm. Ben gets a hug. Our daughter Lucy gets a hug. Anybody else in the family who's going through a difficult time gets a hug. But also, there are people we will never know, like the families in Ireland who have gone through that disaster recently, the families in Thailand. We give them a hug. We don't know them, but we have a sense of what they must be going through. Family. My family, most of my family live overseas, and they have kept us afloat. My sister, Noreen, sent me a poem as a bookmark, and it's by the Hindu poet Tagore. I'll just read you a verse. Farewell, farewell, my friends. I smile and bid you goodbye. No, shed no tears, for I need them not. All I need is your smile. If you feel sad, do think of me, for that's what I like. When you live in the hearts of those you love, remember then you never die. 20 years on, as a family, we've learned to follow Ben's motto, experiences, discovery, and passion. And we try to make every moment count and cherish those close to us. Thank you to Randwick Council and the community for this very, very special place. It means a great deal. Ben would be 48 now, and we wonder what he would look like. Would he be skinny, chunky? Chunky. Would he be losing his hair? Would he be going grey? We will never know. This is a stick that I treasure. Ben made it for me when he was 9 and we lived in Goulburn with the help of his dad. It's got imprinted on it, it's got imprinted on it the word mum. I will always be Ben's mum. Thank you.
Thank you, Jan, and thanks again, Paul. Thank you for speaking today and for sharing. I'd now like to welcome Bernadette Sullivan to perform Angel by Sarah McLachlan.
For that second chance, for a break that would make it okay. There's always some reason to feel not good enough, and it's hard at the end of the day. I need some distraction. Oh, beautiful release. Memories seep through my veins. Let me feel empty, oh, weightless, and maybe I'll find some peace tonight in the arms of an angel. Fly away from here, from this dark, cold hotel room, and the endlessness that you feel. You were pulled from a wreckage of your silent reverie into the arms of an angel, and may you find some comfort there. You're so tired of that straight line, and everywhere you turn, there are vultures and thieves at your back, and the world keeps on turning, keeps on spinning some lie that you'll make up for all that you lack. But it don't make no difference escaping one last time. It's easier to believe in this sweet madness, oh, beautiful sadness that brings you to your knees in the arms of an angel. Fly away from here, from this dark, cold hotel room, and the endlessness that you feel. You were pulled from a wreckage of your silent reverie into the arms of an angel, and may you find some comfort there. Go to those arms of the angels, and you will find some comfort there. There's comfort there.
Thank you, Bernadette. Absolutely beautiful. I know how special hearing that song on this headland this morning is for so many of us. This year, we will be honouring the memory of the victims from New South Wales and Tasmania by reading out their names, followed by a minute's silence. We have 4 special guests with us today who have been long-time supporters of the families and friends since the beginning. Ray Brownlee, PSM, Julie Dunsmore, AM, Martha Jabor, OAM, and Katrina Pavalny will read the names of the 44 people we have lost from New South Wales and Tasmania. These 4 individuals represent the many, many others who provided an enormous amount of support to the families over the past 2 decades. We'd also like to remember and honour all the victims of the 2002 Bali bombings from around Australia, Indonesia, and citizens from so many other nations around the world. We stand with you with love and care in our hearts. So I'll now introduce our 4 speakers. Ray Brownlee is the former General Manager of Randwick Council. He has been together with respective mayors over 20 years, such a strong advocate for the families, providing the initial support and ongoing commitment from Randwick Council for this ceremony. He has always made sure the families and community are front and centre of this ceremony and memorial. Julie Dunsmore, Chief Psychologist for New South Wales Health, Bali Trauma Recovery Program, is known to so many of you, providing ongoing grief and trauma recovery support and counselling for many family members, friends and survivors since 2002. Julie has been a witness to the stories of loss and hope, laughter and the tears and affirmation of love and life and amazing acts of kindness. Martha Jabor is Executive Director of the Homicide Victims Support Group and has been heavily involved in continued provision of much needed support, along with her amazing team, to families and survivors since 2002. In particular, the provision of support to the Bali Mothers Group. Katrina Pavalny was one of the Bali Australian Federal Police Family Investigative Liaison Officers who travelled around New South Wales meeting with families with such kindness and care, providing much needed updates on investigations and information on their loved ones. She was also on the ground in Bali and Indonesia on investigations and supporting families for the trials. Thank you, Ray.
Gail Patricia Airley. Renee Marie Anderson. Christina Betmalik. Abby Renee Borgia. Deborah Ann Borgia. Geraldine Majala Buchan. Stephen Fish Buchan. Chloe Blanche Byron. Paul William Cronin. Francois Rose Dahan. Michelle Gail Dunlop. Thank you, Julie.
And thank you, Julie.
Craig Dunn, Shane John Foley, Simone Jane Hanley, James Berkeley Hardman, Tim Hawkins, Andrea Michelle Hoare, Adam L. Howard, Joshua Ives Iliff, Dimi Kotranakis, Elizabeth Lizzie Kotranakis, Danny Robert John Lewis. Thank you, Martha.
Scott Lysart, Linda Eileen Markawana, David John Mavrudos, Lynette Patricia McKeon, Marissa Lee McKeon, Jodie O'Shea, Bradley Ridley, Ben Roberts, Kathy Ann Salvatore Hackett, Greg Sanderson, Catherine Patricia Seelan, Nee Buchan, Thank you, Katrina.
Tom Singer, Julie Stevenson, Behik Suma, Clint Nathan Thompson, Charles Richard Denis Van Rennen, Jodie Lee Wallace, Shane Patrick Walsh Till, Robin Webster, Charmaine Margaret Witten Nee Rink, Jared Michael Yo, and Louisa Zervis. Thank you.
Thank you, Ray, Julie, Martha and Katrina for being here today and for all your past and ongoing support for the families. I would now like to ask everyone to please be upstanding as we observe 1 minute of silent reflection in honour of those we lost. Thank you. Please be seated. In addition to the 88 Australians who lost their lives, it is important to pay tribute to the many Indonesians who were also lost, as well as solemnly acknowledge the survivors and pay thanks and respect to the first responders. There were many survivors, rescuers, family, friends and volunteers who were part of the search and rescue efforts, who assisted in the hospitals, who sat by bedsides, giving comfort to injured ones, loved ones, as well as strangers. There were many who travelled to Bali in the days and weeks following and searched for family and friends. An unimaginable task and truly the front line. In recognition of all those lost and these important people, and as a symbol of peace, we will release a flock of 88 doves. The doves will be released together by their owner, Denise, forming over the headland here before flying to their home in Kurnell. When you are ready, Denise, please release the doves. Now can I please welcome back to the stage Joe Sullivan, who will be performing Rainbow by Casey Musgraves.
When it rains, it pours, but you didn't even notice. It ain't raining anymore. It's hard to breathe when all you know is the struggle of staying above the rising water line. Well, the sky is finally open, the rain and wind stops blowing, but you're stuck out in the same old storm again. You hold tight to your umbrella, 'cause darling, I'm just trying to tell you that there's always been a rainbow hanging over your head. If you could see what I see, you'd be blinded by the colours of yellow, red, orange and green, and at least a million others. So tie up your boat, take off your coat, take a look around, 'cause the sky is finally open, the rain and wind stops blowing, but you're stuck out in the same old storm again. You hold tight to your umbrella, 'cause darling, I'm just trying to tell you that there's always been a rainbow hanging over your head. Oh, tie up your boat, take off your coat, and take a look around. Everything is alright now, 'cause the sky is finally open, the rain and wind stops blowing, but you're stuck out in the same old storm again. Let go of your umbrella, 'cause darling, I'm just trying to tell you that there's always been a rainbow hanging over your head. Yeah, there's always been a rainbow hanging over your head. It'll all be alright.
Thank you, Joe. And thank you also again to Bernadette for performing for many years at this ceremony. We've now reached the end of today's formal ceremony and will soon commence the flower laying ceremony. I'd like to thank you all for coming to this very special place and joining us for this very important commemoration. Following the flower laying ceremony, we've arranged for morning tea here on the headland. We'd also encourage everyone to head down to the northern end of Coogee Beach to see the special sand sculpture that was installed this morning. I'd now like to welcome Dave Byron to the stage for some closing remarks. Dave lost his daughter Chloe. Dave lost his daughter Chloe and has represented the families many times at this ceremony.
G'day, my name's Dave. My daughter's name's Chloe, and everybody in a suit, thank you for turning up. I can't remember your names, but thanks for turning up. Everybody in a uniform with a police badge on them, thank you for looking after us. Julie Dunsmore, goodness me, how can you thank Julie? She's just a wonderful person, and her work's never ending. She's tireless, and she saved my life a couple of times, and when days are bad, and days are bad, but also days are good. You know, we're not here to celebrate bad things. We have to step forward from that, and that's what this is about, stepping forward. We have to step forward, not necessarily put it behind us and bury it, but step forward and live a good life. I've got the best life you've ever seen, honestly. I live at Bondi. I surf every day. I don't work. I don't do anything. I just walk down the beach, have a surf, get some fish and chips on the way home. It's just fabulous. I've got the best life you've ever seen, honestly. Albo, you'd want this life. It's terrific. And then I get to come here once a year. Well, I don't come here once a year. I come here a few times. When I'm feeling a little bit blue, I just pop in and say hello to everyone, and I feel better, you know. And now on a day like today, I woke up this morning, honestly, I just felt like death. I thought, I'm not going, I'm not doing anything. I didn't have any brekkie, I didn't have a coffee. I thought, I'm not going. I got in the car, I drove around Bondi 3 times, pulled up, and then I came here, and then I see all you guys, you know, and you guys are what make my heart swell. You know, not many things do, except East Winton, but apart from that, nothing makes my heart swell except you guys. You really do. I honestly, truly love you, and I never thought that would happen ever. You know, how can I love strangers? Oh, I nearly swore then. It's just the bestest of things. So. Wow, Randwick Council, how can you thank Randwick Council enough for what they put on here for us? You know, it's just so big. Give them a hand, that's great. Give yourselves a hand too for turning up. Look at this, it's pouring down rain. And, you give me a hand too, because I'm going. Goodbye. Soz, it's me again. I forgot to tell you about this dreadful shirt I'm wearing. It's 20 years ago, I picked this shirt up in a shop in Bali. I was showing my little mate, the Feral, that's his nickname, the Feral. And I said, Feral, have a look at this shirt. Isn't it the worst shirt you've ever seen? And he said, mate, I'm going to vomit. And with that, Chloe stepped through the door. And I'm standing there with this shirt. And she said, Dad, don't you dare buy, don't you put that back. Don't you dare buy that shirt. And of course I went, I'll have that. And that is why I wear it once a year. Today's the only time I'll wear it, so have a good look at it as I go. Cheers.
Thank you, Dave. I'd now like to welcome musicians Rachel Fame and Aidan Carr, who will accompany the flower laying. Each year, we invite everyone to lay a flower under the memorial or at the New South Wales Place of Reflection in honour of those who lost their lives. So, I'd now like to invite children of the families, the Prime Minister, the Premier, the Mayor, and the Indonesian Consul General to lead the flower laying. If you'd like to please come forward. And then I invite everyone to come forward in single file in front of the memorial, and there'll be staff on hand to assist. Thank you, everyone.